What if I told you? The slowest animal in the rainforest isn't lazy. It's running one of the most extreme survival strategies on Earth. This is a creature that can take an entire month just to digest a single meal, hang upside down for days without effort, and, here's the wild part, can actually starve to death with a full stomach. Meet the sloth, the ultimate master of slow living. But behind that sleepy smile and those permanently chill vibes is a biological system so bizarre, so finely tuned, it almost feels like nature pushed the slow motion button and never turned it off. Because sloths don't just move slowly, they live slowly. Everything about them is built around conserving energy to the absolute extreme. Their metabolism runs about 40 to 45% slower than other mammals their size, turning even basic bodily functions into a drawn-out process. Their diet doesn't help either. Leaves are tough, low in calories, and packed with hard-to-digest cellulose, basically the nutritional equivalent of chewing cardboard. So instead of rushing digestion, sloths take it to the extreme. Their stomachs act more like compost systems, slowly fermenting food with specialized bacteria, sometimes taking up to 30 days to fully break down a single meal. And this one slow process controls everything. Their movement, their sleep, their social life, even how often they poop, is dictated by this ultra-slow digestion. In other words, a sloth's entire life is locked into slow motion, not by choice, but by design. Now here's where things get even stranger. A sloth can literally starve to death with a full stomach. It all comes down to temperature. Sloths aren't like most mammals. They're partially poikilothermic, meaning their body temperature rises and falls with the environment more than you'd expect. So when the weather turns cold, during long rainstorms or sudden temperature drops, everything inside them starts slowing down even more. And that includes the bacteria in their gut. Those microbes are responsible for breaking down all that tough, leafy food. But if they stop working, digestion completely shuts down. The food just sits there, undigested. No nutrients, no energy, nothing. Meanwhile, the sloth's already tiny energy reserves begin to drain. So despite having a stomach full of leaves, it can slowly starve from the inside out. It's a brutal trade-off. Their entire survival strategy is so finely tuned to their environment that even small changes in temperature can become life-threatening, making sloths surprisingly fragile in a rapidly changing world. Now here's the twist. For an animal that looks like it's barely holding on, sloths are way stronger than they appear. Their strength doesn't come from big muscles or explosive power. It comes from something far more efficient: tendons. Sloths have specialized tendons in their forelimbs that lock into place when they grip a branch. Once engaged, their hold becomes almost automatic. No constant muscle effort, no fatigue. That means a sloth can hang upside down for hours, even days, without getting tired. While humans would burn energy just trying to hold on, sloths essentially set it and forget it. This adaptation is so powerful, they can sleep, eat, and even give birth while hanging in the trees. And in some cases, they've even been found still gripping branches after death. It's not about speed, it's not about power, it's about endurance. Because in the rainforest canopy, the ability to hold on forever is far more valuable than the ability to move fast. Now, if you thought their strength was impressive, this next part is almost eerie. A sloth's grip isn't just strong, it's practically permanent. Unlike most animals that rely on constant muscle effort to hold on, sloths barely have to try at all. Their long, curved claws naturally hook inward, and when combined with that tendon locking system, their grip actually tightens as their muscles relax. Yeah, relaxing makes them hold on harder. This creates a completely passive grip. No strain, no fatigue, just a built-in mechanical lock that keeps them suspended in the trees for hours, or even days. And it's so effective, it doesn't just work in life. Sloths have been found still clinging to branches even after death, locked in place like nature hit pause and forgot to unfreeze them. But while they're alive, this adaptation is a game changer. They can sleep, eat, mate, and avoid predators, all while hanging upside down, burning almost zero energy the entire time. It's like evolution turned their hands into living carabiners, perfectly engineered for a life spent dangling high above the rainforest floor. Now here's where things get even weirder. A sloth isn't just an animal, it's an entire ecosystem. Their fur isn't smooth like most mammals. Instead, it's covered in tiny grooves that trap moisture, creating the perfect environment for life to grow. And over time, it does. Algae, fungi, bacteria, beetles, mites. Dozens of organisms take up residence, turning the sloth into a slow-moving, living habitat. Some insects even spend their entire life cycles right there in its fur. Imagine carrying around your own miniature jungle everywhere you go. And this isn't just random, it actually helps the sloth survive. Because that algae, it gives their fur a green tint, which blends perfectly with the moss, leaves, and branches of the rainforest canopy. Which brings us to one of their smartest tricks. That green color isn't dirt, it's camouflage. In the dense rainforest, where predators like harpy eagles and jaguars rely heavily on movement to spot prey, sloths become almost invisible. They move so slowly and blend in so well that they often go completely unnoticed. No running, no fighting, no dramatic escapes. They don't survive by reacting to danger. They survive by becoming part of the background. In a world where speed usually wins, the sloth proves that sometimes the best move is not moving at all. Now here's where the story takes a seriously bizarre turn. Sloths don't just live in the rainforest. They're part of a strange three-way partnership, and one of the key players is a moth. Yes, moths live directly inside a sloth's fur. These tiny insects spend most of their lives nestled in that damp, algae-rich coat, feeding on secretions and thriving in the perfect microhabitat. To them, a sloth isn't just an animal, it's home. But the real twist happens during one very specific moment. When a sloth climbs down to the forest floor to poop, the moths make their move. They leave the fur and lay their eggs directly inside the fresh dung. Not glamorous, but very effective. The larvae grow in the nutrient-rich waste. Once they mature, they fly back up into the canopy to find another sloth host and repeat the cycle. It's a full-circle system that sounds almost unreal, and it gets even more connected. When adult moths die, their bodies break down in the sloth's fur. This releases nitrogen, which fertilizes the algae growing on the sloth's coat. More nutrients means more algae and better camouflage. So, the sloth provides shelter and transport. The moths contribute nutrients, and the algae help the sloth stay hidden. Three completely different organisms, all depending on each other to survive. Now remember that risky trip to the forest floor? It turns out that's one of the most dangerous things a sloth ever does, because sloths only poop once a week. About every 5 to 7 days, they slowly climb down from the safety of the treetops. This journey can take hours, and every second on the ground puts them at risk. Up in the canopy, they're almost invisible, but on the forest floor, they're exposed. Predators like jaguars, ocelots, and large birds of prey suddenly have a clear, easy target. And sloths aren't built to fight or flee. They're slow, awkward, and defenseless down there. It's basically survival mode, with no escape button. And somehow, it gets even worse. Once they reach the ground, sloths don't just go and leave. They often dig a small hole, defecate, and then cover it up, which means they stay down there even longer. This one routine is so dangerous that it's believed to account for a significant percentage of sloth deaths in the wild. And yet, they do it every single week, which leads to one of the biggest mysteries in the animal kingdom. No one fully understands why. Scientists have been studying sloths for years, and while there are theories, there's still no definitive answer. One idea is that burying their waste helps fertilize the trees they depend on for food. Another theory connects back to the moths. By going to the ground, sloths may be supporting the moth life cycle, which in turn boosts algae growth and improves camouflage. Some researchers think it could be about communication. Scent marking at the base of trees might signal territory or presence to other sloths in the area. There are even theories suggesting it helps prevent parasite buildup in the canopy. And the truth? It might be all of these reasons combined, or something we haven't figured out yet. Either way, every week, sloths risk their lives for a behavior that still leaves scientists scratching their heads. Now here's something that feels straight out of a horror movie. Sloths can rotate their heads almost all the way around. Not 180 degrees, closer to 270. Most mammals, including humans, have 7 neck vertebrae. Sloths can have up to 9, giving them a huge range of motion without moving their bodies. And in the rainforest, that's a massive advantage. Instead of shifting their entire body and risking detection, they can slowly turn their head and scan everything around them. Up, down, behind, above. Nothing escapes that slow, steady look. This is especially important when predators like harpy eagles or jaguars are nearby. Because in a world where movement equals danger, staying still is survival. So while everything else is sprinting, chasing, or reacting, the sloth just turns its head and watches. Now let's flip the script completely, because on land, sloths look like they're moving in slow motion. But in water, they become something entirely different. Sloths are surprisingly strong swimmers. In fact, they can move up to 3 times faster in water than they can on land. Suddenly, that slow motion lifestyle speeds up. Their long limbs act like paddles, and their buoyant bodies help them float with very little effort. And here's the wild part. They can hold their breath for up to 40 minutes. They do this by slowing their heart rate and efficiently managing oxygen throughout their body. It's like flipping a biological switch. Sloths have even been seen crossing rivers and swimming between islands. So while they may struggle on land, water becomes an escape route, a shortcut, and sometimes even a highway. The slowest land mammal are suddenly turning into a calm, capable swimmer. And just when you think their body couldn't get any more specialized, it turns out their internal design is just as bizarre. Because living upside down isn't easy. For most animals, hanging inverted would cause their organs to press against their lungs, making it harder to breathe. But sloths are built differently. Their internal organs are loosely arranged and anchored in a way that prevents that pressure. So even while hanging upside down for hours or days, they can breathe just fine. No strain, no struggle, just efficiency. Combine that with their slow metabolism and low oxygen needs, and you get a system perfectly designed for life in suspension, even on the inside. Everything about a sloth is engineered for hanging. It's not just how they move, it's how they exist. Now here's something you probably wouldn't expect. Sloths are almost completely silent. In one of the loudest ecosystems on Earth, they barely make a sound. They don't roar, chatter, or call out like most rainforest animals. Instead, they rely on stillness and camouflage to stay hidden from anything that might be listening. Silence is their shield, but every now and then, that silence breaks. And when it does, it's not random, it's strategic. During mating season, female sloths suddenly flip the script. They release loud, high-pitched calls that travel surprisingly far through the dense jungle. It's like a broadcast signal cutting through the forest. Males who normally live solitary lives begin to respond. They slowly make their way toward the sound, sometimes taking hours or even days to reach her. No rush, no chaos, just a slow, deliberate convergence. This way, sloths only make noise when it truly matters. Because in a world where sound can attract predators, every call has to be worth the risk. Now here's where things get even more interesting. In the sloth world, attraction isn't about looks, it's about sound. When multiple males respond to a female's call, they don't immediately fight or compete physically. Instead, they use vocalizations to stand out. It's more like a quiet competition than a brawl. Males with deeper, more resonant calls tend to have the advantage. Those sounds can signal strength, size, and overall fitness without wasting energy on fighting. And energy, for a sloth, is everything. So instead of dramatic battles, evolution chose efficiency. The strongest candidate wins, simply by sounding the part. It's natural selection, done the low-energy way. And that efficiency starts from the very beginning of a sloth's life. Because baby sloths don't just grow, they learn survival immediately. And they learn it through smell. From the moment they're born, infants cling tightly to their mother's chest. As she feeds, they constantly sniff her mouth and fur, taking in chemical clues. It's like building a survival guide, one scent at a time. Sloths eat very specific leaves, many of which are toxic or useless to other animals. So choosing the wrong plant isn't just a mistake, it can be deadly. By memorizing these scent signatures early on, baby sloths learn exactly which trees are safe, which leaves to eat, which ones to avoid. And in a life where every calorie matters, that knowledge isn't helpful. It's everything. Now here's where the reality of sloth life gets a little brutal, because even something as powerful as a mother's instinct has limits. And in the rainforest, survival always comes first. Baby sloths spend their early lives clinging tightly to their mother's underside. It's their lifeline, their protection, and their only way to stay off the dangerous forest floor. But sometimes, they fall. And when they do, the outcome is often fatal. As harsh as it sounds, the mother won't always go down to retrieve them. Climbing down puts her directly in danger, exposing her to predators and forcing her into a slow, energy-draining journey. And for a sloth, that risk is massive. From an evolutionary standpoint, the mother's survival matters more, because if she survives, she can reproduce again. But if she risks everything for one offspring, both could be lost. It's a cold equation. But in the unforgiving balance of rainforest life, it's the one that works. Now, if their behavior seems extreme, their bodies are just as unusual, because sloths aren't built for strength. They're built for efficiency. Compared to other mammals their size, sloths have up to 30% less muscle mass. That means less energy needed to survive, but also less power, less speed, and less ability to fight. Their limbs are long, lightweight, and perfectly designed for hanging, not running or climbing quickly. Everything about them minimizes effort. Instead of relying on muscle, they rely on mechanics. Tendon locking, passive grip, and slow movement replace brute force entirely. It's like nature removed anything unnecessary and kept only what works. And that design allows them to survive on a diet that would starve most animals. In a world driven by energy, sloths spend almost none. And somehow, that same slow, low energy system gives them another unexpected advantage. Because sloths can survive injuries that would kill other animals. Their metabolism is so slow that their bodies don't panic the way others do. Less oxygen demand, less blood loss, slower onset of shock. Even their calm nature plays a role. They don't spike adrenaline or heart rate the way most animals do under stress. They stay steady. There have been cases of sloths surviving falls, predator attacks, and serious wounds. Sometimes simply because predators lose interest in such a slow, low-reward target. In a strange way, not reacting becomes their advantage, while other animals fight, flee, or burn through energy trying to survive. The sloth just endures. And in the long run, that might be the smartest survival strategy of all. Now, when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, sloths might be one of evolution's strangest success stories, because they didn't win by getting faster, stronger, or smarter. They won by doing less. Sloths are what scientists would call evolutionary minimalists. Over millions of years, they've barely changed. Not because they couldn't, but because they didn't need to. Their system already works. In the dense rainforest canopy, Food is everywhere, but it's low in nutrients. Most animals would struggle to survive on that kind of diet. They'd burn too much energy just trying to stay alive. But sloths flip the strategy completely. Instead of competing, chasing, or evolving complexity, they slowed everything down. Their metabolism, their movement, their entire physiology is built around using as little energy as possible. And that's the key. While other animals push harder, move faster, and fight for resources, sloths avoid the competition entirely. They exist in a lane where almost nothing else can survive. In evolutionary terms, they're proof of something powerful. Good enough isn't a weakness. Sometimes it's perfection. And that brings us to the biggest misconception of all. Sloths aren't lazy. They're elite survival machines. What looks like laziness is actually one of the most refined strategies in the animal kingdom. By moving slowly, they avoid triggering the motion detection instincts of predators like eagles and big cats. If nothing moves, nothing gets noticed. Their algae-covered fur blends perfectly into the surrounding leaves and branches. Even their scent is masked. They don't just hide, they disappear. And because their bodies require so little energy, they rarely need to leave the safety of the canopy. No unnecessary risks, no wasted movement. Everything is calculated. Every slow motion, every quiet moment, every still pause is part of the design. In a world where survival usually means being faster or stronger, the sloth proves something completely different. Sometimes the smartest way to survive is to never be seen at all. So what if everything you thought about sloths was completely wrong? What looks like laziness is actually one of the most extreme survival strategies on the planet. A life built not on speed, power, or dominance, but on precision. Because sloths don't just move slowly, they exist differently. Every part of their biology is engineered for efficiency. Their metabolism crawls, their digestion takes weeks, and even their grip is designed to work without effort. Nothing is wasted. They can starve with a full stomach, survive injuries that would kill other animals, and hang effortlessly in the trees for days at a time. Even their bodies, inside and out, are built for a life upside down, and somehow it gets even stranger. They host entire ecosystems in their fur, partner with moths in a bizarre life cycle, and risk their lives once a week just to poop, following a behavior that scientists still can't fully explain. It's weird, it's risky, and it works. Because instead of competing with the chaos of the rainforest, sloths stepped out of it entirely. They don't chase, they don't fight, they don't flee, they disappear. Through stillness, camouflage, silence, and patience, they avoid danger rather than confront it. And in doing so, they've survived for millions of years with barely any change at all. That's not laziness, that's mastery. So the next time you see a sloth hanging there, barely moving, looking like it has all the time in the world, just remember, it kinda does.